having better sales conversations. Again, coming back to that cookie cutter, like you can't just jump on a sales call and talk the same way to everybody that gets on a call with you or on your sales pages or anything like that. You've got to speak to all the numbers and you've got to speak to particular influences. So when I get on a call, one of the first things I ask is, tell me your date of birth and let's have a conversation based on something that's actually going to resonate with you and that I can be of better service in that sales conversation, right? Instead of just spewing information at you that you're like, I don't even want that.
Yeah,
right?
Doesn't resonate, that doesn't feel right. Yeah. What are some of the things as business owners, as coaches, as service providers that we absolutely must make sure is dialed in? And what do we focus on?
Yeah, so I would actually start like.
Welcome to today's episode. I'm super excited. We're going to be chatting about universal laws. We're going to be chatting about numerology. And both of these topics, I cannot believe we have not covered on this podcast, even though my clients would be like, oh my goodness, she hasn't either. And she talks about this stuff all the time. However, I'm not an expert. So today I've brought Cindy Van Arnam here to chat with me and to go down the rabbit hole. And I'm going to get excited. I already know. I'm already excited. So Cindy, welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I am super excited about this conversation too. I feel like I could talk about this for days. So this is going to be fun.
This is going to be so fun. Let's start off with, how did you even get into numerology and universal laws? Because there's something on your website that really caught my eye, and it is exactly the same words that I use in my marketing. No to cookie cutter. And that's one of the things that made me go, yes, we have to speak to you, because business is all about energy, right? So how did you start to bring these modalities into your coaching?
Well, I've never done anything cookie cutter in my entire life. When I was younger, I made a series of very bad decisions. You name the bad decision, Cindy's made it. And one of those was pretty severe addiction. And instead of going through formal treatment, which I knew wouldn't work for me, I decided to move to a country that has the death penalty if you do drugs.
Oh,
So
okay.
I've never been one to play by the rules. And the idea of man-made law versus universal law kind of appealed to me. It took me several years after addiction and going through personal growth and personal development. And then I met someone who was teaching numerology and universal law. And, I wasn't into the spiritual side of things. I was a project manager. I was a virtual assistant. So I was doing all this, the technology stuff, not the spiritual stuff. And she started speaking to me about numbers. And I was like, I don't know. This is pretty woo-woo. It's out there. But I kept leaning in. There was something about it that I was like, I got to know more. My curiosity started getting piqued. And so I ended up hiring her as a mentor for a year and learned everything there is to know about numerology and universal law and started absorbing it. And I took what I've known about virtual assistant, project management, online business management, and started to bridge the gap between those two pieces and started seeing how, when we are unique, magical human beings, that we can't be cookie cutters. So how is it possible that your business can fit into that mold as well? And so I started seeing how certain people like to do business this way and certain people like to do it this way. And so I started creating more of a rhythm and a dance in people's businesses versus you got to do it the same way everybody else does, because that's boring.
Totally. And I love the words that you use there, rhythm and dance. I do have a dance background. I had a dance studio for 20 years. And that rhythm is it's a perfect analogy, because we all like different music. We all like to dance in different ways to different types of tunes. We're all enticed or excited by different music. So if that's what we can hear, then there's got to be more to it, right? There's got to be more. Like, let's start with the foundations of numerology, because this is such a huge subject. You and I had a conversation before we started recording. I was like, how are we going to bring this in? So let's start with the foundations.
Yeah. So I work with two different systems of numerology. One of which is very common. Most people would Google it as what's my life path number, and that shows up. This is called the Pythagorean system, and it is kind of like the foundation of your personality. Just like looking at your astrology chart or looking at your human design, it gives you key understanding of what your strengths and your weaknesses, I hate that word, but what
Yep.
those might be, where you might sabotage yourself, where you have the greatest opportunity for growth, where you might want to call people into your experience to help support your energy chart. And it really does give you a clear picture of kind of the foundation of your personality. The basics of foundational numerology is that there are only nine numbers in existence, one through nine. And
Hmm.
anything else is just an amplification or a play on those numbers combined. Then there's the zero. A lot of numerologists leave the zero out. It's very important. The zero is our source code. It's the source energy, universe, God, whatever label you want to give that. And so we can't leave that out because we need that in order to function. All other numbers come from the zero. But then how we work within those particular numbers depends on when we were born.
So I'm going to ask you, I know my life path number is a one. I know that it's a leadership number. I've never heard of like the weaknesses or the sabotages. Can you give me like a little tiny glimpse into and anyone that's a one is going to get a little bit of extra here. Like, what are some of the things I need to know about having a one life path?
Okay, so I would actually consider a one life path to be a 10, not a one, simply because of the fact that we're just not here alone. So there's never one. It's always one and. So I always add the zero onto the 10 or onto the one because it's a 10. So the 10 is very much a risk taker, somebody who wants is constantly changing. It's
Hmm.
never going to stay the same for a 10. And so sometimes sabotage, you might think, well, it's all going to change anyway, so why bother? It's all going to be different 3 months down the road, 6 months down the road. So planning might be challenging. But what the 10 actually does, strength wise, is goes out into the world and gathers information, often through cosmic downloads, through intuition, and then comes back and brings something to the world that's completely innovative, completely different, things that people have never seen before, thus the leadership quality. How's that
Mm.
resonating with you?
Oh, 100%. Like I know that
Yeah.
stuff.
I just met you. I don't know you, so.
Absolutely. Now, you have got some different ways that you use numerology. You said that's the foundation, but you use a different method and you blend it. Can you tell us about that and how that works?
Yes. So I'm actually one of probably only about 1,500 people on the planet who use the system that I'm aware of that in the particular way that I use it. It's called Astro Egyptian numerology. It is, if you were to Google it, it would show up as cartology, completely different thing. But I use the deck of playing cards with a combination of planetary influences and numerology to help me and help my clients build their business. There are people who do this type of work with the deck of playing cards for relationship dynamics, and they help couples and they help relationships and marriages, things like that. I've seen people do this type of work with health issues, forecasting. There's just like astrology, there's a lot of rabbit holes. So I chose, because of my background and my passion for helping people build their online business, to specialize in business numerology. So I use this first and foremost to help my clients understand who they are. Because again, there's that rhythm and dance, and we all have a life path that we follow. And now I am not a fortune teller, there is no crystal ball.
Mm-hmm.
But we can take a look at the energy that's available for you with this system so that you can take advantage of it and leverage it instead of just kind of being at the whim. It's kind of like if you can see ahead, 4 steps ahead, then you can plan and adjust and make plans for when things are going to be a little bit more challenging in your life
Yeah.
or when you need to be taking massive action because this is part of your energetic chart right now.
Mm.
It's a lot like lunar planning as well. We can look at some of the different influences in your chart. We can see, what's possible for you. The first time I ever got a numerology reading, I had been a virtual assistant, standing behind the scenes. I was building other people's dreams and not my own, and kind of struggling. I did not like my life at that point. And I got this numerology reading, and it felt like I had come home. For the
Mm.
first time, I was seen. And she's reading this stuff to me and she's telling me these things about my numbers, and all over it, you need to be a public speaker everywhere. And I was like, and I remembered when I was 5 years old, there's a picture of me with a cowboy hat on and a cane, and I am on a stage in some campground just hamming it up. And it just brought me back to that little girl who wanted to be a speaker and a performer. And it helped me change my entire business trajectory
Mm.
as a result of that. So
Mm.
it can open up massive possibilities for you and your business growth in that way. So I support my clients with that. Another thing that it's really useful for is helping to create content. Because if you know the collective energy that we're all experiencing, then you can write content based on that collective energy. And it
Yes, this is
resonates
what
with
I
your
love.
audience instantly.
Yeah.
Yes. So my clients are like, they watch my weekly forecast every week and they're just like making mad notes about what's happening so that they can batch their content in advance. And I've watched their engagement on their content go through the roof as a result of using this. It just like, it's a full moon. If you write content about a full moon or a new moon, people are like, ooh, tell me more about that, right? Same thing with the numerological influences. And you don't even need to talk about the numerology. You don't need to know numerology. You just need to understand the energy. That's all.
Yeah, totally.
So the third way that I use it to support my clients is having better sales conversations. Again, coming back to that cookie cutter, like you can't just jump on a sales call and talk the same way to everybody that gets on a call with you or on your sales pages or anything like that. You've got to speak to all the numbers and you've got to speak to particular influences. So when I get on a call, one of the first things I ask is, tell me your date of birth and let's have a conversation based on something that's actually going to resonate with you, and I can be of better service in that sales
Mm.
conversation, right? Instead of just spewing information at you that you're like, I don't even want that,
Yeah,
right?
doesn't resonate, doesn't feel
Yes,
right. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. The fourth way, I hope this is obvious at this point, but for planning and strategy to
Hmm.
really map out. I do quarterly planning with my clients because in this year's energy, especially, but most of the time it's really hard to map out a full year plan because things change so quickly. And so I help people map out 3 months of their goals, their intentions, what they want to accomplish. And I use the numerological influences to help us understand that. Especially, at the time of this recording, we're coming into September where things are going to move a lot faster. Knowing that in advance helps you to plan ahead so that you're not blindsided by wild and untamed energy when it shows up, right?
Right. Yeah. I wanted to touch on that from something you said a little bit earlier, and that sort of plays into it as well. Sometimes the energy feels uncomfortable and it means sit back, be introspective, meditate, start to think like, what is our soul wanting right now? But sometimes
Mhm.
the energy feels a bit uncomfortable, but it's the opposite. It's like lean in. We're meant to be working through something. So it's really important to know the energy. Otherwise, if you lean back and pull back from that uncomfortable energy all the time, you're not moving forward or reaching the next level as you're meant to. And we've had a lot of that energy this year of lean into the uncomfortable because it's a big year. So
Yes.
it's really important to understand the energy so that you can start. It's almost like having the cheat codes for what you're feeling.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I have referred to numerology as the cheat code for life so many times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that. And, there are times when it's time to pause and take a step back. And there are times when it's time to go and move forward. But all of those energies can sometimes feel uncomfortable, like you
Yeah.
said. And so how do you decide which one's which, right? If can I talk about the energy of 2024 and as we
I
move into
really want to
2020?
dive into this. Is this the best place to
Yeah,
talk about it? Because I
sure.
really,
Yeah,
really want to talk about this because this is,
yeah.
if there's a year to lean in, it is this year.
Yes, exactly. One of the things that I do to kind of help people, especially if you don't understand numerology fully, if you are familiar with tarot, this can be really helpful. If you look at the eight in the traditional deck of tarot cards, it is the strength card,
Hmm.
right? And it's most descriptions talk about it being, learning to walk beside the beast. You're not learning to tame the beast because we don't want to do that, but it's learning all of the nuances of our personal power and becoming the CEO of our experience, which means accepting all of the uncomfortable and the comfortable, of accepting those shadow parts of ourselves and really understanding that all of those pieces belong and beginning to walk with that instead of trying to fight against it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The eight, if you put the eight on its side, it creates an infinity symbol and it moves in flow, right? So oftentimes, especially as business owners, we want to try to control everything and make sure everything's in the right place and get our proverbial ducks in a row. And we can't do that. We know many of us have tried. And the eight invites more of the flow, of going with the flow, but also having mastery over our experience, where we know there's stuff to do. And there is a to-do list of 52 million things. I'm not going to get it all done, but what can I get done today to move the needle forward? Even when I'm upset, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, this is triggering me, that's triggering me. There's so much noise out there, it's chaos. Another way I like to think of the eight is a rocket taking off. It's momentum, and it takes more fuel to get the rocket off the ground than it ever uses once it's in orbit. And when that sucker is taking off the ground, there is smoke and debris and crap flying everywhere. You're supposed to be the rocket, not the debris. And so
Yes.
this year, 2024, is inspiring us to be the rocket and to walk beside the beast and to be that CEO of our entire life experience and of our business growth,
Mm.
because it's leading us into 2025, which is a nine energy year, which is it's going to be interesting. I haven't looked at the full energetic perspective of the year yet. I do that in November, and then I do a full year forecast for everybody. But what I'm looking at is the nine is completion. It is
Mm-hmm.
ending, but it's also an opportunity to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
So oftentimes, if we say we launch an offer out into the world and it builds momentum and we have a bunch of clients and we do the work in the eight of momentum, and then we're like, okay, and now I'm reflecting. And now I'm integrating in the nine and I'm thinking about it. And did I love it? I don't know. There's some things that maybe need to change. So in the nine, you kind of decide, I'm just going to toss it and start over. Don't recommend that. Or I'm going to take this thing and make it better and amplify it for more. So the
Mm.
nine is going to take what we've learned in this eight energy. And in 2025, we'll be reflecting on the last 9 years, integrating what we've learned, and then choosing to either end what we're doing or take it to the next level. So
Mm.
I'm super excited about 2025. I think 2025 is going to open up a lot of space for spiritual teachers, healers, coaches, because it's clearing out the clutter of
Mm-hmm.
what happened a few years ago when
Mm-hmm.
everybody decided to start something online.
See, I feel like this energy is kind of together with the eight energy already, because what
Yeah.
I'm seeing, and I don't know if you're seeing this, is a lot of business owners that maybe started 2018, 2019, 2020, and have just gone, nah, enough, and have just gone, nah, door closed, going back to a job. I've seen
Yeah.
that a lot. I've seen a lot of people already, I guess, me and my husband were talking about it last night. It's almost like if we imagine business as a child, it's like almost that they're going into like these teenage or young adult kind of years where there's a lot of rebranding going on. There's a lot of team restructure going on. There's a lot of changes within the way they're doing things. So I already feel like we're sort of going that way. And this action energy is just having people already go, I'm out, or
Yeah.
we're here, we're doing this. And the people that are leaning into it, you can really see it. That's like, yeah, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah, you can see it. Like it's palpable. The people who are all in and they're like, no, I am going for it. I'm going to be the rocket and not the debris. You can see it. You can see it in their content, in their branding, and how they're working with clients, how they're selling their offers, and how they're promoting themselves. And then you can see the chaos and the debris and the smoke and the crap. And I think people are getting very aware of it, right? DM conversations and cold pitching, things like that. I mean, as no strategy is a bad strategy. It works, obviously, but I don't condone cold pitching in the DMs. It's not much fun and it doesn't feel good, especially for people who want to connect with others. And so I'm finding that a lot of these strategies that worked in 2020, 2021 are falling apart. They're
Yeah.
more of the chaos and the debris that we can see pretty clearly now.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we kind of move on to something that I really want to jump into, offer creation,
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
you speak to where people should be really leaning in? Because you and I had a really great conversation before we started recording about, in the Northern Hemisphere, it's summer, people are taking time out. I'm definitely noticing that right now the energy is like go, 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 go. Um, can you please speak a little bit into what energy is coming for the end of the year and how we should be
Mhm.
leaning into that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you are considering taking time off in the summer, I'm going to suggest that maybe you think otherwise. And I know, the kids are out of school, it's nice out, you want to go to the beach, but find pockets of work where you can focus and take really strategic action now. Right now, at the time of this recording, it's July, it's a six energy month. The six energy, and I look at the monthly energy as we go through as well. And the six is kind of creating this equilibrium. I always think of the six as the great harmonizer. And I love all the musical references. And I didn't even know that you love to dance. That's so fun. Um, but the six, often we go from one pendulum swing to the other in our business, right? It's feast or famine, or there's lots of clients, or we're really busy, or we're not. And so there's this pendulum swing, and the six is inspiring us to just kind of come back to this equilibrium for a moment and to kind of, I always joke around with our little ducks in a row. It's impossible. There's a duck on the roof, there's one in the back of the cop car, but we're trying to like kind of create and gather the energetic resources that we need because we know energetically that something's coming.
Yeah.
Now, August is a seven energy month. The seven is inspires innovation, quick action, movement. It wants forward momentum. And that's because September is coming, which is an eight energy month. So we've got the eight energy month in the eight energy year. It's the amplification of momentum. But if you try to jump into the stream of momentum in September when the kids are back in school, it's going to be chaos. So
Hmm.
you want to have that time right now to find your equilibrium, set your boundaries, clean up the mess that's been created over the last few months. Make sure you got your offers all dialed in and in order. You got the energy and the resources available to you in order to start taking action as August and September start moving forward. Because if you do that, massive results in that eight energy in September and October.
What are some of the things as business owners, as coaches, as service providers that we absolutely must make sure is dialed in? And what do we focus on in September?
Yeah, so I would actually start be promoting and sharing what your work is by the time you hit August. Don't wait
Hmm.
for September because the 8th is so fast paced. It's September almost feels like it's going to be like a day long and then it's over. It's just going to
Uh-huh.
go quickly. I mean, even if you think of 2024, it's been going so fast and people
Oh,
look up and they're like,
so fast.
how is it already halfway through the year? What just happened, right? And
Yeah.
it's only going to get faster as we move towards September. So you want to make sure as a business owner that you've got your offers in place, your marketing is dialed in. You want to make sure that you have your self-care practices in place because you don't want to burn out. That eight energy is going to move fast, right? And so creating those habits now so that when September comes, there's like a song about that, I think. Um,
There
but when
absolutely
September,
is, and it's already in my head.
I know, and I was singing it. So when September arrives, there's this opportunity to cash in on the
Mm,
energetics that you put into your business now, right?
mm.
Instead of waiting till September and then feeling like you kind of missed the boat because the momentum's just there and gone.
Yeah.
I work with my clients a lot, and this moves into the offer creation. I work with my clients a lot around the law of divine timing. And momentum is something that we all want. We want the clients, the money, all of the things coming into our business, and we want things to just be in flow and it all working and like a well-oiled machine, right? Well, that doesn't happen unless you put in the work first. And so you can't just jump into momentum and expect it to be easy because remember, it's a rocket and there's chaos and debris flying everywhere. You've
Mm-hmm.
got to make sure your energy, and you are aligned to be the rocket and not the chaos. So
Yeah.
doing the work now, getting those offers in place, the marketing, the systems, whatever it is that you need, depending on your business model, super important to be doing that now.
Love that. Oh my goodness. Love that so much. Now, before we dived into that energy of this year, there was four things
Mhm.
that you went through and we were up to offer creation. That was your fifth
Yeah.
thing. I'd love
Yes.
you to dive into this because you've
Mhm.
got some really cool stuff to share. So let's go here.
This is one of my favorite things. I work with a lot of, it's 3:33. I just happened to look down at the clock.
That's so cool.
So let's amplify this conversation. The three is an amplifier and a creator. So offer creation is challenging for some. And I'm watching a lot of, people using AI technology to create offers. And offer creation is meant to, well, in my industry, it's meant to be transformational work, not just a bunch of information. If I wanted to learn information, I could just go Google it. The nature of a lot of my clients' work is transformational. And so it's hard to put tangible things to it. It's hard to think about what those results are when somebody gets out at the end of the course. It's hard to come up with what tools and modalities. Some of my clients have 20 different modalities. And how do we put that all together into something that makes sense that I can then take to the market and promote? And so I actually had a client last year. She came to me. She had been working in corporate for years. And then she became a numerologist. And she wanted to figure out how to put the two together so that she could support corporations and their HR department in creating amazing teams. She had that offer put together in 2 weeks using
Wow.
this system that I create. So if you think AI technology is going to make it faster, it's not human. You need to out-human the AI. I think there's a time and a place for AI. I honestly wish that it would do my laundry and clean my dishes and make my
Mm-hmm.
bed versus my creative process because we are meant to be creators.
Totally. Could not agree more.
Yeah. Yes. So I use the 6 stages of transformation based off the universal law of divine timing to help my clients create offers, but I also use it for a multitude of other things because it is the rhythm and dance of life.
Mm-hmm.
And everything we do, whether it be getting into a relationship, building a business, having a child, anything we do is based off of that law. And all other laws live within the law of divine timing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the law of divine timing is one of the most misunderstood laws out there, which is really unfortunate, but maybe fortunate for me because I get to talk about it all the time. So, if it's okay, I'll walk through those 6 stages of divine timing and then talk about how you can use that to create an offer if that works for you.
That would be really great. What I'd love you to do just before you do it, to add some context, you said that it's so misunderstood. How do people misunderstand the law of divine timing?
Yeah, one of the things I hear a lot in the spiritual realm is, well, if the universe wants me to have it, then it will be.
Oh my
Or
goodness, say it louder for the people in the back.
or my personal favorite, well, all in divine timing. Now, there are stages of the divine timing cycle that we have no control over, but there are stages of the divine timing cycle that we very much have control over, and we need to be active participants in the co-creation process.
Hmm.
It's not like we're just sitting in the patio making sure our vibe is high and meditating all day and, oh, my clients are going to show up. That is not how this works.
Hmm.
We need to take responsibility for our actions and what we're doing. And so this is the part of the law of divine timing that's my personal favorite because there's a time and a place for massive action and there's a time and a place to sit back. And when you
Mm.
start to embody the rhythm of this cycle. You start to see it like this. And my clients, they message me all the time. They're like, oh my God, I totally understand where I'm at. I'm going paddle boarding. Oh, I totally understand where I'm at. I am scheduling my whole week to get stuff done this week, right? Because we start to understand and dance to that rhythm. Does that answer your
Hmm.
question?
Absolutely. And I just want to touch in something that there was an episode at the beginning of the year that I did with Jean Sheehan around sacred geometry. And in sacred geometry, this is a 1 year and it's very much about taking responsibility. And when you put all of this together and take responsibility for the action that you're taking, like you can see how all of a sudden the building blocks are just going to go, yes, this is the year to go next level. So, yes,
Yeah.
take us through offer creation.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is kind of walk through an example of the divine timing cycle, just with a really simple example so we can get a feel for it. And then I'll walk you through how we use this to create an offer. Because I think you need to understand the 6 stages first, otherwise it's going to get confusing.
Yeah.
So it's a cycle, so it's a circle, so there's no starting point. But for sake of conversation, we'll start with awareness. So we become aware that we would like to create better results in our business. Let's just go with the proverbial 10K month. We'll just start there.
Yep.
So I become aware that I'm uncomfortable with what my bank account is saying. It feels a little, I would like to be making more money. I'm aware that I would like to create more finances in my business. Okay, so in awareness, you're supposed to get really curious. And I
Hmm.
wonder what, I wonder where, I wonder what, I wonder who. And you start getting, you end up having like lots of downloads during awareness. And so I always tell people, have a journal with you when you're in awareness because it's going to be changeable. It's this word's always hard to say, mercurial, right? So
Uh-huh.
it's like ruled by the planet Mercury, which is always changing. And it's always mental energy. So you're thinking about stuff, you're trying new things. Don't sign up for a full year of yoga or a full year mentorship with a business coach. Try out one session and see if you resonate with it, right? And you're experimenting. But once you decide, okay, I am aware that I don't like my bank account and I would like it to look like more. Now I'm aware that I want $10,000 months. You move into the second stage of divine timing, which is acceptance. Well, now all your feelings come up, all the
Hmm.
guilt and all the shame, and I wasn't taking action, and I didn't do this, and I blew my bank account, and I blew my credit card, and now I'm here and I'm stuck, and I don't know what to do, and I've been doing it all wrong. So the shame and the guilt and the frustration and the anger, all that stuff percolates to the surface. It is meant to do that because of the law of polarity. In order to create anything, we must have friction, we must have heat. But what most of us do, we don't want to feel our feelings. We'd rather numb
Hmm.
it, dumb it, drug it, feed it, shove it under the carpet, Netflix it, right? So in acceptance, when you start feeling all those feelings, your job in that moment is to dive right into the feelings and feel your feelings and practice forgiveness. I always use forgiveness, coming into a place of gratitude for the place that you're in and accepting what is. But you also begin to accept what could be. So here's where the bridge kind of starts to tip over to the other side. So if you do feel, I highly recommend feeling your feelings. So feel all the feelings, get it out in your journal, yell at the trees, do what you got to do to process all the feelings that are coming up and the guilt and the shame and all that stuff so that you can remove what's standing in your way of what you want. Because if you try to go after $10,000 months and you have shame around money, you're going to have a hard time.
Hmm.
So remove the shame, things get a lot easier, right? So no more Netflixing your feelings. Which then moves us into the third stage of divine timing, which is my personal favorite, self-responsibility. And here is where we become active participants in the whole process. I'm aware I want something. I have felt my feelings and I have forgiven myself for it and restored my ability to give and receive from life. Now, here's where people say, well, if the universe wants me to have it. No, decide. Decide you're going to have it, non-negotiable. And I don't mean just writing it down on a piece of paper and going, okay, and so it is. I mean, feel it on a cellular level in your body, a full body, heck yes, this is mine, non negotiable, which then leads you into the next stage of divine timing. I might add awareness, acceptance, and self-responsibility, if done well, can be done in an afternoon. It often takes us a lot longer because we want to heal and process our feelings and do all this other stuff, and it's just a distraction. You can do that in an afternoon, depending on what is coming up emotionally. Sometimes some of that stuff takes a little longer, but yes, with business, it usually can be done in an afternoon. Which then moves us into the activation stage of divine timing. So in activation, we are following the breadcrumbs. This is where we don't have control. Our intuition says, reach out to that person, connect with that person. And we start seeing these little flashes of synchronicity popping up. And it's our job to grab onto those flashes and do something about it, activation, right? It's our job to trust that intuition, even when it seems wild and crazy and what am I doing? And it's our job to take ourselves out of that zone of familiarity where we weren't making $10,000 months, and go do things that we've never done before and scare the crap out of ourselves and go take action, right? So this is where the action piece is coming, but you don't know where the next nudge is coming from. You don't know what breadcrumb is next. You don't know who's going to pop up in your feed that, oh my God, now I'm on a podcast with her and having this amazing conversation, right? You don't know. When you do enough of the right things, following the breadcrumbs, it leads you to the fifth stage of divine timing, which is momentum, which we were talking about at the very beginning. So momentum is when things are happening and oh my God, and oh, all the clients are coming in and the money's coming in. Oh, nope, can't handle it. Oh, I quit. Just go and hide in the backyard. I'm not right. So it's where we see people sabotage a lot because it gets so busy and we forget to shower, we forget to eat, self-care plan goes out the window, and then you're burnt out and you're exhausted. Nope, can't do it. It's too much. I can't handle it. You asked for it. So you can handle it, right? But it's about maintaining focus. Like I was saying, you're the rocket, not the smoke and the debris. So in momentum, all your triggers are going to come up and all these synchronicities are going to come up. And your job is to focus on the synchronicities and not the dirt and debris, right? Easier said than done. But when you do it, it leads you to the next stage of divine timing, which almost everyone skips. And that's this transmutation stage. The moment you open your bank account or your tracking and you realize I made $10,000 this month, right? And what do? We either go spend the money or we go and, I don't know, hire another coach, or we just keep going and just don't even think about it. What we're meant to do in the transmutation stage is celebrate and honor the journey. And so what I see happen time and time again, momentum, we all want it. We all want it to last, but it's not meant to last because there's a rhythm and a dance. The calendar's full, the money's coming in, the clients are coming in, and then all of a sudden the calendar clears out and nothing's happening, and you go, oh crap, I'm doing it wrong. I must have screwed up. No, you've moved into transmutation where you're meant to be honoring, reflecting, and becoming the person who now creates $10,000 months. And then you move into awareness and you're like, I wonder what it would be like to create $20,000 months. And around you go again.
Love it.
Does that explain the divine timing cycle?
Beautifully. It explains it so well. And I'm sure everyone that's listening is like, oh my goodness, I get it. I get it.
Good.
I love it so much. Can you give us an example of a client that you've worked with that really leaned into this cycle and sort of what happened for them, like what they went through and what they created?
Yeah, actually, well, I rarely work for clients for a full year, but from our birthday to our birthday, we go through an entire divine timing cycle. And she came to me I think it was in December of 2023, and she was in a particular season in her life, and she kind of understood divine timing, but not really. And she was an ambitious go-getter. She's like, I'm going to put my nose to the grindstone. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to get this done. I'm like, well, we'll see about that, because I don't teach burnout strategies.
Yeah.
And She came into a particular rhythm in her business where she recognized that things were really challenging all of a sudden. And she was getting lots of clients coming in, but she's like, I can't sit in front of my computer for very long. I'm super distracted. I'm like, welcome to momentum. And the minute that she recognized it, she was like, oh, so she brought back her self-care and she brought back some of those pieces that help her to focus on where she's going. And then she continued to move forward. She moved into the transmutation stage. And I always joke around, there's two layers to transmutation. And if you think about when a caterpillar is getting ready to go into the cocoon, it starts eating everything in sight, right? It's gathering all. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to start eating everything in sight. Don't do
That's a
that.
metaphor.
It's a metaphor for the integration, right? You're reflecting on all the things you've learned and what you've discovered. So she started doing that and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm starting to see how I'm embodying this divine timing rhythm. I'm starting to see how all these strategies that I've been doing in my business for the last 3 months are starting to work." So she started to reflect on that and it started to come together and piece together, right? Eating everything in sight. A weird metaphor. But then when you go into the second stage of transmutation, when a caterpillar goes into the cocoon, it literally turns into goo. It turns into goo. So do we. When we are becoming the next version of ourselves, we turn into goo. And so she got into a stage in her life, in her year, and she's like, I don't even know my own name. What's going on? I can't focus on anything right now. I said, welcome to Neptune. Why don't you and your new boyfriend go for a trip somewhere and just take off and take a break? And she's like, really? But I have stuff. No, you don't. Not right now. So she went to Vegas for a week, took off, and she came back, landed back into her awareness season and took off again. So she's got clients coming back in, right? But there's got to be that sacred pause of reflection and integration. Otherwise, you just end up reinventing the wheel over and over and over again.
Love that so much. Love it, love it, love it. Before we finish up, I want to touch back on this energy of the 8 year. You were talking about September being the really busy year, the really busy month, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
and getting ready for it now and preparing. When is the actual, let's call it launch phase for anyone that wants to launch a new offer or, whatever's going to happen in September? Is it the same for everybody? And is there anything else that plays into this?
Yeah, there's definitely other things that play into it because, we can look at the collective energy and when people are more likely to buy and things like that, when we've got a buyer's market. And that's definitely going to be mid-August into early September, even late September. So we want to be ready for that. But it also depends on your own chart and what's going on for you. There are certain layers to your own chart. If you're going through your 45th year or your 49th year, there's things to look at there. Depending on when your birthday is, it may not be the time to launch, right? If you're in Neptune and August comes along and you don't even know your own name, it's going to be really hard to launch something, right? Even if you've got a stellar team, it's going to be hard to do. So looking at your own personal rhythm is really going to be helpful as well in that. There's definitely layers to it.
Yeah, love it. Now, you have a resource around activating your weekly divine timing rhythm, which you've talked a lot about. Can you share a little bit about what that resource is?
Absolutely. And we didn't talk about offer creation. So I just want to make sure we're back around to that one too.
Yes, let's go back to it as soon as you talk about this.
Okay. Yes, I think this plays in really well. So we have a divine timing rhythm. Like I said, it flows through every aspect of our life based on the day you were born. So, we go through a yearly cycle. We also go through 7 year cycles. We also go through 7 week cycles. So we can use this system to project manage and strategize based on a 7 week project cycle also. But we also, from the day you were born, have a weekly rhythm because there's 7 days in the week, right? So depending on the day you were born, that would be your awareness day is the day you were born. And then you go through that 6 stage cycle. 2 days are for transmutation. So this guide it's a journal, it's a workbook that you can download off my website, and it allows you to figure out what your personal rhythm is. And then it's filled with journal prompts for you to understand each particular day and gives you some ideas on what business activities to focus on what days.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
The link for that will be in the show notes below. Wherever you're listening to this episode, it will be down below. Let's touch on offer creation before we finish up.
Yeah. I was like, we can't not talk about that. We promised them. Yeah. So when it comes to offer creation and creating a transformational offer, we want to walk our clients through a transmutation process. So let's, for ease, because you don't need to create a 6-week product. You can create 10-week. My program is 20 weeks, but it still walks them through a divine timing cycle. But you want to consider each stage of divine timing throughout the course. So you begin in awareness and you move them into acceptance, then self-responsibility, then the next 3 stages, right? So you've got to, you layer it out. Now it's not linear, but a 10-week course, a 6-week course is going to be linear in a sense, right? So we map it out that way first, looking at what do they need to be aware of in the beginning? What do they need to accept as they move forward? What do they need to take responsibility for? What actions do they need to take? What's going to happen once they start changing? And then how can we celebrate and honor the journey, right? Then in each particular module, we can look at, I use the first 3 stages of divine timing in any module or any masterclass or anything I do. When I teach even an hour-long masterclass, what do I need them to be aware of? What do I need them to accept? And what do I need them to take responsibility for? And so every module has a teaching, awareness, a exercise, acceptance, and homework, self-responsibility. So when you start to pull all those pieces together, and I've got this beautiful PDF process that you can go through and you can map it all out, you can create a transformational offer in a day if it's a short one, in 2 weeks if it's your whole life's work.
Love it so much. Love it. I think that, actually, I don't think, I know that the more we lean into our energy, the universal energy, and work with it rather than push against it, the easier everything becomes. And it's something that I've always been aware of, but it's not always something I've done super well. And it's something that I know that when I really am a part of that, things do go really well. So thanks for bringing more awareness to this conversation. Just to wrap this episode up, what's one thing that you really would like to leave listeners with?
I love that you actually said awareness around the conversation. I think, my students say, you sound like a broken record because I say this over and over and over again. Awareness is everything. You can't change anything unless you're aware of it. And so really being self-aware and business aware and intentional with what you're doing. As humans, it's so easy for us to try to fight upstream and try to move obstacles and try to control our experience. But we are a part of such a greater experience here on this planet. And when we can be aware of the magic and the energy that's available to us, it changes the whole game. So awareness is everything. Just be aware.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Cindy, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Oh, thank you so much.